Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about another conceptual tool, the Bullseye. Now this is a conceptual tool primarily to help you with clear and accurate writing. It's a little bit more than that, but I'm just going to stick to that mainly. Alright, so there's going to be two parts. Whenever you're writing something, it could be a summary, an essay, anything really. There's two steps. So the first step is, do you have what you're writing about, what you want to write about, clear in your mind? Is your thought very clear? Did you understand what you read? If you're not even quite sure what you're trying to say, there's no way it's going to come out good. So make sure it's clear in your mind. And then only once it's clear in your mind will we worry about the execution or the writing. Okay, so making sure it's clear in your mind also has to do with accuracy. So if you didn't really understand what you were reading or your thought's not very clear, you might not portray what you've read accurately, or you can just say, hey, the author was happy that this happened and maybe the author was upset. Okay, so the purpose of this first step and the reason this is all about the bullseye is trying to get this to be clear in your mind is like you're building the bullseye, you're setting up what you're trying to write about. Now, if you're not sure, like let's say you read something and you're like, I didn't quite understand it, or I sort of have an idea but I'm having a tough time, one tip to help you is explain what you're trying to say or what you're thinking about in a conversation. In other words, no writing. Put your pen down, put the paper away. If you can't explain it in simple words to somebody using as many descriptions and words and phrases as you want, then it's not clear in your mind. So what this does is this builds the bullseye in the first place so that what you want to say is at the center of the bullseye. That's ideally what you would like to do. Okay, so that's step one. We're going to focus mainly on the right side, step two, but keep in mind this is actually oftentimes more important because if it's not clear in your mind, it's not going to be clear in your writing. All right, so that's step one. Make sure you at least would know intuitively once something meets your standards. So by building the bullseye, you know what you would like to say, even if you don't know yet the words to use, and you intuitively would know if you write something, how close it is to satisfying what you have in mind. So that's step one. All right, step two is the actual bullseye. So now you know what you want to say. You know you want to say that. Let's say, so this is our conceptual bullseye. So let's say you have the word ecstatic in your mind. So in other words, the scientist was ecstatic when he found out that, I don't know, electrons, whatever. Okay, so you have this word in mind. And then you try to do something. So let's say you're throwing the pen and bam. So let's say it lands somewhere over here. So it lands here. But you ended up describing it as one of these other X's. So let's say instead of saying ecstatic, you wrote thrilled. The scientist was thrilled. Now they're kind of close, right? So they're ecstatic, you're super, super happy, overwhelmed with joy. Thrilled, you're very happy, but you're not as happy as ecstatic. So these are not exactly the same thing. Ecstatic has a more of an intensity than thrilled. So that's what I'm talking about with the bullseye. Did you nail the thought you had in mind? Now you could say, hey, the scientist was satisfied with the results. That's even worse because that's even farther away from ecstatic. So conceptually, you could be sort of close to the idea. You could nail it on the head, or you could say the scientist was happy. So by happy, I've denoted this whole bullseye or kind of stadium as, in other words, you're not even throwing a dart that's thin at this point. You're throwing a dart that's super wide, so you just covered the whole space. So yeah, happy, it's accurate, but it's not precise. So accurate just means correct. Precise means how close are you to nailing it? So in other words, accuracy would say that, hey, I meant to say happy, but I said sad. So sad is not an accurate description. But anything really in here is accurate because it's on the correct lines of thinking. You're giving us the true impression, but the precision might be off, right? So we want to be super precise and be here. So as part of this, we have the accuracy versus precision thing. So it's not enough just to be accurate and say the author was happy, like, okay, yeah, happy. But how happy was he? Was he ecstatic? Was he thrilled? Was he just satisfied? Where in this bullseye was he? So the purpose of this is to create what you've intended. So step one is you set it up so you know what you're trying to convey. You got the understanding that he was super, super, super happy. And now you're saying, hey, is there a way using a word or a phrase that I could portray what I have in mind? Now, keep in mind, this goes beyond just simple words. So this applies to phrases and the entire way you're structuring your sentences, but I'm just going to stick to words to convey the idea. All right, so a few tips to help you do this better. So you can think of words as colors, just like a painter uses this exact color he or she wants. So you could think of these as colors or arrows. So you want to hit the bullseye every time when you're writing. So if you have something in mind, tell us exactly what you have in mind. Don't settle for close enough. So you may think like, yeah, I said he was really happy. I said he was very, very happy. That's okay. That's very close, but you could have said ecstatic, which is like incredibly super duper happy. So make sure that you're paying attention to your word choice. You're not just sloppily saying, oh, close enough. All right. And tip two is, after doing the first part, which is thinking about what you're trying to say over here, you may think like, I know what I'm trying to say, but none of the words I know quite nail it, right? So your vocabulary may simply not be good enough. So tip two is you may need to expand your vocabulary or color palette, if you want to use the analogy from painting. And you may need to go look up some synonyms or some other words to describe what you have in mind. So maybe you don't even know the word ecstatic. Maybe you just know thrilled, happy, very happy, right? So there may be a special word for, maybe you have a spot like in mind right here and you don't know what that is. So pay attention to your word choice, but also gradually try to expand it. And later in the video, we'll go over some ways you can do that. All right, so that's the conceptual bullseye. So when you're writing, step one is make sure your thought is clear. And step two is in your execution, make sure you've picked words, phrases, and larger structures that convey exactly what you had in mind. All right, so here's an exercise that I want to leave you guys with. So in these sentences, let's say number one, we have I walked to the park. Your job is to mess around with walked. Now you can also change the to, but the idea is don't change more than you have to. Change the minimal amount in the sentence to vary the sentence. So you could pick synonyms for walked and you could vary the intensity. So you could say I ran through the park. You could say I strolled through the park. You could say I trekked through the park. I sauntered through the park. I skipped through the park. I'm just going to give you guys, I'm going to leave it there, but see what you can do with that. See how many you can come up with. And once you do that, see if you can order them from, let's say, slowest to fastest or from normal to abnormal walks. And keep in mind also when you're doing these and with the bullseyes, words aren't necessarily one-dimensional. So we talked about the fuzz factor, right? So in these bullseyes, happy is a very fuzzy term, whereas ecstatic is a little more precise. So I could say I was sad. Sad's a little vague, right? It's not very precise. How sad were you? So in this example number two, I felt sad that the store was closed. How sad were you? So you could give us different degrees of sadness. That's just one dimension. But there may be words that have more than one dimension. So there could be a style. So for example, let's say you want to, for like number one, let's say you say hobbled instead of walked. So not only is hobbled probably indicating you didn't walk fast, it's also indicating that you had kind of a quirky and maybe abnormal or unhealthy, like you were injured type of walk. So words can vary in intensity along many dimensions at the same time. So this bullseye is a little bit oversimplified because it could be many dimensions. But try that, have a go at that, see how many you can come up with these. And for number three, you can either do one or several of your own. Also for 1 and 2, you could try to time yourself, like how many can I come up with in 2 minutes? So have a go at that. see if you can vary these, and hopefully that gets you a little more sensitive to the fact that when you start writing, whether it's a summary, an essay, anything, you're more aware of precisely what it is. Like, how did the author feel? Were they upset? Were they devastated? Or were they just upset, right? Okay, so that's the precision. And the accuracy is, did you understand it? So the accuracy is it just vaguely correct or not? And it's like the math analogy of accuracy versus precision would be, let's say we have a number such as 2.9. Well, if we round it to 3, that's accurate. Like, we're still sort of correct, but it's losing the precision because we have fewer digits, fewer significant place values. All right. Also, I have this silly face with the 2 eyes and the smiley face, which is kind of creepy, but I'll leave it at that, and I'll see you guys in the next video.